WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts, along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episode. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
Howdy, everybody. My name is JR Sparrow. I'm back with West Virginia and Commonplace interviews and sessions. And today I have with me Nat Turner. Nate Turner. I said Nat. Just a little, not a joke, just a historical reference to West Virginia and then a reference to him too at the same time. So real quick, the nostalgic thing that we ask on the show is, who is Nate? So Nate, please tell us who you are.
Well, you just said Nat Turner. So I'm not going to say I'm a reincarnation, but I'd like to believe I'm a version of Nat Turner, a guy who believes in helping folks to revolt, to help us find a way to be the best version of ourselves today. I'm a guy who was named after Nat Turner purposely. My father wanted to name me that. My mother wanted to name me Nathaniel, meaning gift of God. So I'm not sure either of them got what they were looking for, but I am actually Nat Turner.
All right, so let's get into this. Share with us your journey, and how did your experiences and passions lead you to become the Renaissance figure you are today?
Well, my journey began in Gary, Indiana in 1965. So if you know anything about Gary, Indiana, it was the first city in America to have a black mayor. So Gary, for the best part of my life, has been home, and it's been a place that's been unique because it's been uniquely black. My parents, again, I was raised born in 65. My father wanted to name me after Malcolm X. So that's the initial thing. And my upbringing was just about finding a way to be supportive of people in the community and do something positive.
Now, you describe yourself as a humanitarian propulsion. Hold on. Whoa. A word I can't pronounce. Help me out there.
Humanity propulsion engineer.
Yep. All right. Can you explain what this means and how it connects to your mission?
So first of all, I don't think I've asked you your first question correctly. So what makes me a Renaissance person? In addition to being where I'm from, I hold degrees in accounting, in law, in history, and theology. I've also been an entrepreneur. I've owned my own financial services company for about 30 years. I'm an author. I've written 6 books. I'm a speaker who's spoken around the country. And I've been coaching parents for the last 12 years or so how to use a tool called backward design to create for their children the best lives possible. So that's that. What makes me a humanity propulsion engineer is because I think all human beings deserve the opportunity to be our best selves. We just don't have people who are propelling us to be our best selves. So a little bit like Nat Turner, trying to find a way to freedom. I think the thing I can do today is to show people using tools, techniques, and strategies a way to freedom, like what is real freedom: self-liberation, self-determination, economic liberation, et cetera. And we do that through a strategy of backward design.
All right, so backward design. Let's take a step back. Your son's life. You developed the life template.
Yep.
Can you walk us through that process? What inspired you to create that? Because I'm interested in that. That right there, like that sounds like, and with all of the education and knowledge that you have, I want to give you a pat on the shoulder here, because it takes a lot to continue with education. Because at some point in life, sometimes we think that we know not all of it, but we know a good portion, right. To make us an expert here and there. And you just kept going. So thank you for doing that.
As Socrates said, I know that I know nothing. So I am not an expert in anything other than to know that I don't know anything. Every day is an opportunity. I mean, seriously, every day is an opportunity to learn something new. I think when we wake each day, it's the gift. And the gift is that to be present for an opportunity to learn. Backward design and the life template are sort of one and the same things. I finished law school in 1994 and did not have a job. And so despite all of the education that I had, right, all of the things that I thought I'd done, the fact that the university acknowledged me at the end and said, hey, there's a guy here who's done something never been done before, got a master's degree and got his law degree at the same time, I was unemployed. I had a wife and who was expecting a child. And I'm like, man, this is like, I can't tell you what I said, but because it's probably not safe for radio. But I was like, this is ridiculous. I've done everything people have asked me to do, and now I can't take care of my family. And so in that moment, I decided that what I wanted to do is make sure that whatever child I was having, male or female, I didn't want them to experience what I was experiencing. So I thought, well, what could I have done differently? And the only thing that came to my mind initially was that you could have gone to a different law school. If you'd gone to Harvard, Nate, you'd have a job. They're like, well, Nate, why didn't you go to Harvard? Well, you didn't go to Harvard because you weren't prepared to go to Harvard from undergrad. Well, why weren't you prepared in undergrad? Well, because you weren't prepared in high school to get into a better undergraduate school. Well, why weren't you prepared in high school? Well, because you weren't prepared in middle school. And why weren't you prepared in middle school? Because you weren't prepared in elementary. And why weren't you prepared in elementary? Because your mother and father and all the people in your village didn't know how to prepare you. So what are you going to do for your child? Well, you're going to start at the very beginning. You're going to design that child's life such that when that child turns 16, that child is going to meet the academic requirements of a school like Harvard. And that's what we did. We used that philosophy to backward design his life. Got an application from Harvard, took the application apart, found 3 things that Harvard was looking for: great grades, test scores, students who were world citizens, and lastly, people who care for something greater than themselves. And that became the template that we use for everything in his life.
Okay, and I like that. And the thing about that is, it's like it's so smooth. Like you looked at everything, you looked at it in a circle. You saw how everything revolved, how certain things didn't evolve, and then certain things did evolve from this, and you made a counteractive plan to help your son. And I like that. Now, what key elements of life template do you think are most crucial for achieving success, whether in education or life?
I think sort of the thing about the life template is a little bit like the North Star. So, since we're on this theme of slavery, slave revolt. So let's talk a little bit like Harriet Tubman and the North Star. Our ancestors found their way to freedom by using the North Star. I think in most cases, that's what the life template is. It becomes a North Star, gives you direction about where you want to go. My experience is that most people, and I've used this life template for adults, most people have no idea where they want to go. So because you don't know where you want to go, then wherever you are is okay, or you just sit still because you just feel like there's no reason to bother. That's what the life template does. If I ask you, JR, what are your most audacious hopes and dreams? And I said, hey, JR, let's imagine that the world were perfect and there's nothing that could stop you from doing whatever that was. We have a destination. We'd have a really great destination. And then it would be our job to figure out how to get you to that destination.
Okay, and I can run with that. Yeah. The greatest guidance counselor in life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't take credit for it because our ancestors did it long before, right? If people who couldn't read and write and couldn't navigate, couldn't count, could figure out how to use the solar system to navigate themselves to freedom, you and I should be able to do everything. We have artificial intelligence and computers and GPS, etc. And still, oftentimes, we're more lost than our ancestors ever were.
I could see that. Now, you talked about being an author. Raising Supaman has inspired many. What are some of the most important lessons you learned while raising your son that you think all parents should know?
The most important lesson is that I'm a tree and I should never expect my fruit to be anything other than what I am. Parents oftentimes want an apple, but they are pruned. You can't, right? You're not going to get an apple if you're a prune. You're also not going to get an orange if you're a peach. It's incredibly important for parents to understand who we are and who we want to be, because our children are going to be exact replicas, in most cases, to who we are.
See that. Definitely see that. And then the thing with that too is like, some people take that a deeper step and then they start going into that vicarious nature. And when you get into that vicarious nature, that's where you have to be careful. And I like that you never said that you were trying to live through your son, with anything. It was all, it all has a certain type of intentionality to it. And the intentionality, gives your child his independence, and it's a way to help him foster that. And that leads into my next question. How did you find balance between that?
Between being a father and being a person who run a business? You mean, what do you mean by balance?
Like guiding your son, like the balance, like how did you like? Because when you're guiding your son, you want to give your son independence, your daughter, whomever, you want to give them a certain type of independence. Like, so how did you balance that, with intentionality? Because it's a certain way you kind of want to move them. You know what I mean? Like when you're sort of like when you're molding clay, you want it to go a certain way, but sometimes it leans a little bit, and that's where the intentionality comes in. And you're like, hey, I kind of want you to be this way, but I don't want to push you so hard. I want you to be independent and find your own road.
Right. So I think a couple of things. One, it's going to probably sound odd to you that the way I found how to be a parent was through The Lion King. I watched Simba and Mufasa, and I realized that's the kind of relationship that I wanted. And so there's a scene in The Lion King where that Simba goes to the elephant graveyard and Mufasa warns him against going, and he comes back and Mufasa has to discipline him and give him this lesson about learning to listen and do what he told. But the end of that conversation, Simba says, "Dad, we're pals, right?" And Mufasa says yes. And so in my ideal of being a father, that's what I was wanting. I know I was going to be times when I had to discipline my child. That's okay because I'm supposed to know where the pitfalls and the minefields are. That's my role as a parent. But the bigger thing for me was, how do I raise someone to be a king? So my balance is in that. My balance is in realizing what it is that I want at the end. I want to raise someone who is a king, not just a king, but a good king. My son's actual name is Naeem Kahari. Naeem is Arabic, it means benevolent. Kahari is Swahili, it means kingly. So the goal really was to raise a good king.
Okay. Now let me ask you this. Now we're going into the education of your son, right? A rigorous academic schedule and personal achievements and things that he had to do. How were y'all able to achieve this? Was this something that you did just with your own merit, with some type of wealth, some type of privilege? Was there something extra added to it? Because here's the reason I asked that, and here's why. Because I come from the state of Virginia, right?
Yes.
And I live in the state of West Virginia, but now I'm transplanting to Florida.
Okay.
There is a disparity between the educations between the two states that border each other. Where I'm from, everyone is given equal opportunity for education. It doesn't matter about your wealth or any of that stuff. The only thing that separated the people in the schools with me in Virginia were that this real simple, crazy thing. The detail that the person decided to put into what they wanted to do. So if it was a kid that had some type of learning disability, they would raise that kid up in the early years of elementary, middle school. And by that time that kid got to the 7th grade, that kid had to have their own intuition that, hey, I want to keep doing this, or hey, I don't want to do this. And a lot of those kids that didn't want to do it by the age of 16 had the choice to leave with a GED.
Right.
And the children that were from the middle class, because I was from middle class, and then the upper middle class and then the rich kids were told, you're going to school. And the ones that left school that were wealthy or something like that and got that GED at 16 were shunned. Society said, hey, go to a trade school. So that's why I'm asking you that, because the kids that we had money, you would have thought that the parents would have said, hey, you got to keep going. But the parents were like, no, we don't want to make generational wealth. We want to keep that money in house. We don't need this son or whatever, our daughter, that's going to mess up.
So I would say no, it has nothing to do with wealth, except the wealth of knowledge. Because it certainly wasn't economic wealth. Because I mentioned to you earlier, I didn't have a job. And I didn't, and I started my own business in 19. Well, I wasn't making any money. Our very first apartment smelled of cat urine. Things were tough. The wealth that I had was the wealth of knowledge. I found a book written by a guy named Glenn Doman, who was educating children who had brain injuries. And by 18 months, those children with brain injuries were reading and also doing sophisticated math problems. And I thought, I don't have a child with a brain injury. So why don't I just do the same things Mr. Doman did? Now, along the way, I found out about how the brain works, and that, in the first 3 to 5 years is the most crucial time for a child's brain development, or that in the first 7 years is when we develop most of who we are in terms of our personality. But most of that stuff happens long before we get to school. So my experience has been that it's not really about the school. I can care less about the school. I can take a child from any school district anywhere in the country, and we can use backward design. but I need mothers and fathers to be involved and understand what we're trying to do and stop putting the onus on the school system. I don't think schools, I'm not a guy who believes heavily in how well schools do. I think schools are underfunded in most cases. I think many people who teach are not really qualified to be teaching or leading anyone. And I just think families have to take a greater onus in what we want for our own children's lives.
Okay. Okay. Now, moving a little bit further, college and career readiness.
Mm-hmm.
You're a strategist in this. What do you see as the biggest challenge for students today, and how can this be addressed?
The biggest challenge is that we start too late. We start too late. So in the United States, 2/3 of children at third grade cannot read at third grade level. Just think about that. A third grader, they're 7 or 8 years old. They cannot read. That 2/3 are on welfare. So I just think we start too late. We don't give parents the tools and strategies to help their own children. Like society loves to tell us that the child's first teacher are the parents, but parents don't know how to teach. So if you're going to call somebody a teacher and you don't prepare them to teach, then you're going to send a child to school. In Indiana, I'm from Indiana. Indiana, you don't have to go to school till you're age 7. So think about that. That's correct. Many states in the United States, kids don't have to go to school until they're age 8.
So hold on. So if I grew up in like a little bottom town like Madison, Indiana, or Seymour, or something down there at the very bottom of the state, I ain't got to go to school.
Right. You got to go to school. So think about that. In some states, it's 8. It's age 8.
Wow.
Now, so JR, if your brain, if 80 to 90% of your brain development happens from 0 to 3, and the people at home with you don't know what to do with this phenomenal tool, it just sits idle. And then we drop you off at 7 and then ask them to figure out how to prepare you for the future. So like I said, we just start way too late.
And like one thing I'll add in there, like, and that's crazy because I know even in my generation, which I'm 39 now, so I'm 1985 and up.
Okay.
We had by 89, we had hooked on phonics.
We should absolutely.
Yeah, we had little small tools and things to work on enunciation that guided us. I mean, because you really got me thinking about this. I started reading, reading at the age like 5 or 6 at a good fluent level. And by the time I was in second grade, I was probably reading at a 4th grade level. And that's where I come in with something. And my next question for you, and this is kind of crazy because I've dealt with this with children, lately. I noticed that the children from an age group of kindergarten, and I'm talking about during the pandemic, the kindergarten kids till now have a very bad deficit. And, these kids are like 9, 10, and 11 years old now. Like some of these kids are like what we used to see back in the day with the kids that can't read. It's like there's a major deficit. And I know that by the time me and you were a little bit older, we're going to see it in the workforce from these people. These kids, there are kids right now that are in the 4th grade and in the 5th grade that I know personally in the state of West Virginia and all the other places I travel throughout my travels that can't read. Yeah. And my question to you, what is your thought on this new, let's take an iPad and teach a kid how to learn. What is your thought on that?
Again, I think those tools are wonderful. I just think we start too late. So you said you learned to read at 4 or 5. My son learned to read at 2.
Whoa.
So, right, because I saw somebody who was raising children, helping children with brain injuries, be able to read at 18 months. So like, well, what is this person doing? What did this person do that we're not doing? And that guy was doing simple stuff like taking an infant, showing them pictures, and then saying everything that was on the page. So if I saw a fire engine and I had the child and I said, hey, Naeem, this is a fire engine. Fire, spelled F-I-R-E. Engine, spelled E-N-G-I-N-E. It's red, R-E-D. It makes this sound, right? So until he got bored looking at that picture, once he got bored, I changed it to something else. Here's a lion. Lion goes, roar. Lion spelled L-I-O-N. People who don't tell you the truth, they are lying. L-Y-I-N-G. So you do all these things. And one day, when the child is 2 months old, the child speaks his first words. When the child is 10 months old, he's speaking in full sentences. At age 2, I have him tested, and his vocabulary exceeds that of a 9-year-old. Did I do anything special? Was I wealthy and privileged? Absolutely not. I just followed this little script that somebody did with kids who had brain injuries. And so that's my point. When he shows up at school as a 3-year-old, he's reading and he's doing math. He's not counting on his fingers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He's going 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, etc. What's the difference? His parents understood that this brain he had needed to be developed as soon as possible rather than later on in life.
Right. And that makes so much sense because, like, with the way that the mind works, like you said, something taking that long. And I used to make a joke with people all the time, and you're making me sound true. I'm like, usually, man, after them kids are like 8 or 9 or 10, I'm done with them because there's nothing more I mean, I'm not saying this is a disrespectful term,
Sure.
but it's like their mind's made up on what they're going to be. I like to help with literacy because that's one thing that I like.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be like, man, we can always work to help someone read. I say, but comprehension gets lost after 10 and 11 years old because that kid's made their mind up. They don't want to take the time. They want to understand, but they don't want to comprehend. No one took the time with them when they were younger to tell them that comprehension is the goal, is the key to anything else you're going to do that's applied.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, yeah, we got to work with him later on in life.
Aristotle famously said, if you bring me a child by 7, I'll show you the man. So this is not a new concept. Folks have known this for a long time, and most of what we become happens before we turn age 8. I would also say this to you. You've probably heard of the 10,000 hour rule, which is that how long it takes you using deliberate practice to be an expert. I would ask, how many hours are spent when we don't help kids become the best versions of themselves? If we start at 0 and we go to the 3rd grade, how many hours is that? And are they then now experts, to your point earlier, of doing nothing? Many of us become experts doing nothing, not because we want to be experts in doing nothing, but because the people who were supposed to lead us didn't show us to do something. So either we learn to be experts at doing nothing or we become experts at doing something. But either way, we're going to be an expert in something.
Okay. And I can run with that. I like that. Now, we come to a portion in the show where I pay homage to this thing that we do. And I pay homage to a news magazine. This news magazine is called 2020. And 2020 had John Stossel for comic relief. It had Diane Sawyer that was very poignant with her interviews. It had Elizabeth Vargas later on, but it had one lady in particular, Barbara Walters. Now, Barbara Walters, she could take a show and make it personable. She could make you interested in it. Or if it fell flat, the news station would cut it off at 11 o'clock. Sometimes she ran over to 11:02. And you remember when it ran over to 11:02, it was something good. So, Nate, are you ready for your 2020 question?
If I am or not, you're going to give it to me. So yes, I'm ready.
All right, so here we go. Now, the first question, success. Success is something that we all define in some facet. Sometimes we want to act like we don't want to define it, but we all do define it some way. We all have it etched in a mirror, and we look in the mirror and see it every day. We either see it as a success or we see it as some form of failure. Now, the time in the sundial has the time on it right now, and it's your turn to give us your terminology for success.
Success is a process that you get up every day and you give the universe, the creator, the planet, however you define it, the best version of you that you can possibly be, so that when you put your head down on the pillow at night, you know you gave it all. And if you get another day tomorrow, but I don't define success. I define success by your commitment to being the best version of yourself and doing the greater good.
Okay, now the next thing, and this is your Diane Sawyer question.
Okay.
A word we don't want to talk about is failure. Everybody wants to go around it and this and that. To me, failure is a lesson learned. It's something that knocked on my door and I didn't answer it proficiently at the time. But I can go back from a lesson, a mistake or something and do it again. Because we can always have a redo in most facets of things we do. If it's on an academic level, even on certain things in personal. But we're talking about academia right now. So please give me your description of failure.
So success and failure are intertwined. There can be no success without failure. There can be no failure without success. Success and failure are the peaks and the valley in life. And without both, all land is flat. So I'm not concerned about failure because I understand failure is part of success. And I'm not concerned with success because I know success is part of failure.
Okay. And then another word that's in society, it's a negative word to some people. It's not a negative word to me, but it's the word no. The word no to me means new opportunity. And I follow that mantra, that strong suit, because being a wrestler, I was different times in school and in college and different other places that sometimes a certain way I did something was an automatic no, a certain takedown or blah, blah, blah. So I was like, no, not going to do that again, next round, whatever. And in life, business and things like that, no sometimes was the greatest thing that ever happened to me because it sent me down another road. So to you, what does no mean? And what was a no that pivoted you into a different place in life?
Well, no, it depends, right? So no could mean that there's danger and you should not go into a place where there's danger. And no could also mean someone trying to keep you from an opportunity. The most significant no in my life has been the no where my high school guidance counselor told me that the best that he believed I could hope to do was join the military. He said I could not go to college. I was not college material. So there was no for college for me. And he was wrong. So, but it was that no that propelled me to want to prove to him that he was wrong.
Okay. And that's what we need there. Now, here's the hard question. This is your Barbara Walters question. You help people. You help a lot of people. And being a servant to guidance leaves your cup half empty or half full. So how do you get yourself lined back up and you get back to a full replenishment? How do you do that?
Every day, the first 20 minutes of my day, I write my life as I'd like it to be, not as it is. And it is from those 20 minutes that my cup runneth over. Every day I get a new word, I get a message, I hear a theme, I hear a song, I see a film, I hear some lyric from a movie, a song, I'm sorry, a quote from a movie, and then I sit quietly and I write. And I'm certain that something greater than me fills me with that and reminds me of what my place is on this planet, and then I'm good.
Okay, and I like that, and I really enjoy that, and that was probably the gem inside this episode, along with everything else. Now we come to a point in the show where we do a shameless plug, and the reason we do a shameless plug is so that everyone can know where they can meet and greet you across the internet, and how they can get intertwined into your persuasion in life and guidance.
All right. I'm easy. It's simple. Like most people have a website. It's Nathaniel A Turner, NATHANIELATURNER.com. That's it. I mean, I like most people, you're on social media, but if you go to the website, you can find all of the links to all the social media sites.
And audience, the great thing about all that is you'll find all that information nicely placed in the show notes, because that's the after podcast portion that we always like you to go to so you can meet and greet people across the internet. So we're going to do this a little different for this episode of Interviews and Sessions. Normally I usually do the closing statement here, but Mr. Turner, it's your turn.
Right.
I need you to leave the world with a closing message, a closing thought, a closing revival.
Okay. All right.
Take the floor.
Okay, here we go. I want people to remember this, that the most important word in all human language is the word who. Why do I say who? Because I think when our time is up on this planet, who we are will appear in our obituary, who we are will appear in our eulogy, and who we are will be the last word scribed on our epitaph. And the way that I think you should go about living each day is to remember that you are here and people will know you by who you helped, who you served, and who knew their life mattered because of you.
Okay. And on that note, whenever seeking the uncommon, you come to West Virginia Uncommon Place. And I am J.R. Sparrow, and we are signing off.
Please follow WV Uncommon Place on Instagram.
Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at oncommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that, because I don't even know if that played through to you. The outro did.
Oh, I heard it. Yeah.
Oh,
you told me.
All right, so I got that's the first time I've done the relay. So we got that all worked out. So thank you very much. Your show will come out 2 Wednesdays from now. I will send a link through all the Podmatch stuff. I'll go see Alex Sanfilippo tomorrow. We got a big Jacksonville meetup.
Okay. Is that where you are?
Huh?
You're in Jacksonville?
Yeah, I'm in Jacksonville right now.
Okay.
I'll be back up somewhere at some point, back up north for a little bit. I travel with my job, so I'm everywhere. So I want to thank you very much. I'll give you a good rating. I will send you. Oh, hold on. Let me just stop the recording for this, because I don't need to do it for this.